Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to the Wolverine Report, episode 41. Joined as always, co-host Evan Cardimino, Charlotte Lynch, technical director. And Evan, 1 year ago, just about our first episode, and our first episode was Spring Sports Recap. And we are reconvening to talk a little bit about Spring Sports 2025, the amazing memories, teams, players, seasons. Looking to run it back, huh?
Yeah, first episode was a spring season recap, and it's only fitting we do a spring season recap this year as well. And what a great spring we had. I mean, a lot of great teams. Westwood had a really dominant spring season. Excited to talk about all the teams that we covered and go back to our roots and go back to what we started with our first episode last year.
Absolutely. Amazing season. Amazing milestones, too. Some really just outstanding milestones. We had two teams that made it to the Final Four. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to start, folks, with boys tennis, 11-7 on the year. They were the number 12 seed in the MIA Division II playoffs. Won their first round game. Round of 32 win, 4-1 over Oliver Ames. Westwood is the number 12 seed, so they had a home game. I was able to go to that. It was a fantastic match. And shout out to the players. They delivered. Andrew Easton, got to see him, up close playing. What a talent he is. He's coming back next year. Gunther Gullisarian, we saw him on the golf course. Tremendous tennis player. He's got a heck of a serve. And Timmy Donovan, these are Timmy Donovan, the third singles player for Westwood. We've called his name a bunch, when it comes to the hockey and some of the big goals he scored. But what a tennis player he was. He was a finesse guy. He'd be making the other guy run around the court, and he'd just wait for them to make mistakes, and a terrific season for Timmy. And shout out to the doubles as well. Ethan Wang, John Mutaya, Aiden Lee, and Michael Gordon. But a fantastic season for them, 11-7. The TVL is very, very competitive when it comes to tennis, boys and girls. When you look at those teams, whatever division they're in, they're typically in the top 10. So it's a terrific season for them and Coach Lori Bass. So shout out Coach Lori Bass, terrific job she did. And girls tennis, 14-4 on the season, Evan. Number 9 seed in the Division II playoffs. Coach Martha Lofna, friend of the program.
Yep.
She's going to be on an episode. Actually, you'll have seen it by then, episode 40 of the Wolverine Report with AD Matt Gillis. Round of 32 win, 4-1 over Dartmouth, but terrific team she had as well. Audrey Lake, remember that goal she had in the playoffs?
Yep.
Scarlett Bernard, terrific tennis player, all of them. Vani Tawari, the third singles player. So all three of them were terrific as the singles. And doubles players, some familiar names. Frankie Gennari was teamed up with Srimaya Reddy, and Megan Greeley teed up with Carly Murray, Pride of the Maze. But a terrific season. They had TVL large champs with Hopkinton, and that's something that's not abnormal for them. I think they've been winning a bunch the last few seasons. Head coached by Martha Lofna, who's done a terrific job. And sound like we're talking to her last week. She'll be coming back coaching wise, or she plans to, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
The kids love her. She loves the kids, and she's done a terrific job. But boys and girls tennis, what a season they had. To have home playoff games, earn that, and then to win those home playoff games, some fantastic memories that they had, and they got some good talent coming back as well. So, tremendous season for both of them.
Yeah, and you love to see, I look at these rosters we have, and you see a lot of players we've run into in other sports. Frankie Gennari, Megan Greeley, Audrey Lake, Tim Donovan, Gunther Gullisarian. These are all guys who play different sports, and it's all about, tennis is a life sport. I think Martha said that to us either on the podcast or definitely in just talking. It's something you can do well beyond high school, well beyond college, and it keeps you in shape. I don't know if you've ever played tennis, but if you run around for a little bit, it's tiring. So, it's great to see the athletes staying in shape in the spring, out of their, season sport. We know Audrey Lake, soccer player, Tim Donovan, hockey player. Yeah. Keeping in shape, keeping conditioned, and getting ready. And it's one of those sports when we'll talk about it with track and field too. You're going to see a lot of athletes who play other sports, and they do that to kind of keep in shape, keep on top of their game. So it's great to see. And on top of that, having great seasons, winning TVL championships. I think this is 2 in a row now for girls tennis. They won last year. Yeah. So I don't know if it was with Hopkinton or anyone else, but I know they had at least a share of the TVL last season. So And great to see them getting into the playoffs, having some home games. I know last year we actually didn't have any home games at tennis, so a program that's getting better and better through the years, and great to see for tennis this year.
Absolutely. And you mentioned we see a lot of different athletes that we've covered over the season. We also see ones that are specific to tennis. One thing I would say is amazing competitors. So when I went to watch some of the matches, they are just dialed in, and they want to win. And, just the tennis is, like Martha said, it's a game of life where you're going to have your good points. You're going to have, some faults. You're going to hit the net and whatnot. But how do you prepare for the next one? And watching both the boys and the girls, they were just so positive. They remained focused. They were getting each other going. When other matches were done, they would go over to root their teammates on, and it was awesome, the support that they had amongst their teammates, but also just saw Matt Preedy out there sitting behind cheering Timmy Donovan on, and to be able to cheer your colleagues on, your teammates on, and to remain positive in some of these matches, these doubles matches, they were marathon matches. Some of them were they ended an hour and a half after some of the other matches ended early.
We've seen matches go for I did a tennis match not this year but last year. It was 3 hours. Some of those matches they go, and they're long games, and it's an endurance sport for sure. You have to be well conditioned. You have to be an athlete to play tennis, and it's impressive what these kids do.
I'm thinking of the Megan Greeley and Carly Murray match. That was when we had a big crowd for it, so it was awesome. It was a memorable match, and they might not have won a state championship, and which is only one team gets to do that in each division, but everyone's going to remember that match. Everyone's going to remember the singles matches and how well they played against a great Dartmouth team. We're talking about the girls playoff win, but that is going to be something that they're going to remember for a while. Like how it was a marathon, how they just kept at it, and how they came away with the win in marathon fashion in front of their colleagues, fans, and families. It was amazing. So shout out boys and girls tennis, incredible season, and best of luck to the seniors. You guys were an incredible example for the underclassmen, and setting that culture for obviously many years to come. So terrific job. Boys volleyball, I did not get a chance to see their games, but followed them. History making regardless. First season for the boys volleyball team this year. Last year they had a season, but it wasn't a accredited varsity season. This year it was, and I believe first game they had, first win of their first year win ever for Westwood boys volleyball. But a couple thoughts you have on this?
Yeah, they had a strong start to the season. It's a first year varsity team, and I believe last year was their first year as a club team. So this is a program that in 2 years has gone from being non-existent to now at a varsity level, competing for a spot. And Coach Nate Costello, who I believe is also a football coach, defensive coordinator, has stepped up as the head coach, and he is building a program there. You look at the record, 6-12, and I don't think that's indicative of where this program is going. It's a young program. It's in your first season, and as a Westwood High School in a growing sport, you're trying to figure out, how does this work? How do we get used to the season, a varsity season? So definitely a program to keep your eye on. I think they're in the right trajectory, especially going from non-existent to being in a spot to compete and getting wins and getting good competitive wins. They're playing teams that are also, not necessarily TVL teams, but they're playing them twice a year because there's only a few teams that are really in this. It's a growing sport across the state. Just some notable players I have right here: TVL All-Star Jacob Liu, and then honorable mentions for Gabe Coxiero, Kenzie Chen, and Wesley Lee. So, already early on having some TVL All-Stars and honorable mentions, and that's big in your first season. You don't know what you're getting into for a league. So, and then looking forward, 2026 captains Jacob Liu and Aiden Chan. So, this is a program heading in the right direction. I think this is a team that we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on in the next years. And we actually, Charlotte was the one covering those games for us. So, they were great games, a great young team, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go, where they develop. It's a growing sport in the state of Massachusetts. Sure. I think most of the teams in the leagues, I think there's only 2 divisions of it, whereas you look at, other spring sports, you have 4 or 5 typically. So, definitely something that's going to continue to grow. I think you'll see in the future more and more TVL teams start to kind of get into it. But a great first season, a great foundation. The big thing when you're starting a team is culture setting. This is where I think it's the most crucial for Coach Costello to help foster the culture you want as a team. And I think he's done a great job with it. You want to implement that Westwood culture that we talk about so often, setting up the good foundation of, our goals as a team and how we want to act and carry ourselves. And you watch it and they're just like any other Westwood team, and they are priming themselves for success.
Totally. I mean, what they did this year, they're going up against teams that have been around for a while. So these are teams that have developed their program. These are teams where, they have players that have been playing for a while. And for Westwood to go out and establish themselves as now a TVL team and, 6 wins, that's a terrific way to start off your first ever season. But like you said, just to set the culture, watching those games, I watched a bunch of the I'd watch the replays, and they're having a blast out there.
Yeah.
They were having a blast, and they were so, positive to their teammates. And it was similar to when we covered the girls volleyball. After points, they were fired up.
Yeah.
And, if just individual efforts were recognized,
Yeah.
And high fives after everything. You can never have too many high fives.
Right. The other thing, too, about the record is I think, I edited a couple games. I know Charlotte edited a couple games, and the thing I noticed when I was watching it as we were editing it is that these aren't, 3-0 sets usually. Yeah. The games we covered,
they're battles.
At least, they were 3-2, maybe a couple 3-1s in there, but they're battling the 4th and 5th sets in this. So even though the record says 6-12, I don't think that's indicative of how good of a team it actually was. I think the record kind of hurt them in terms of rankings, but. You look at them on paper and you might say that, but if you watch the games and you watch them, this is a team that's battling, and they have close battles. It was never, too far apart.
Yeah.
This wasn't a team that was getting swept. Yeah, this was a team that was battling for wins and losses, and a couple of them just didn't go their way, and part of it is there is some luck in sports. But that's kind of where, for a first-year team, you can't really ask for much of a better season. I mean, it's a year-one team, and this is a team that's still trying to grow and figure out, and that's why I'm excited to see what they do next year.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to get, they established the foundation for future success with the work they put in. Like you said, they had battles. And they did not roll over. They did not just say, you know what, this team's better than us. Quick three sets and on to the next game. No, they fought tooth and nail, and that is a great example to set for the rest of the games, and also the underclassmen to see. There's no quit in this team. There's no quit. And when we talk about some of the other teams, so boys lacrosse, what they did this year, and we're obviously going to highlight them, but I'm just using them as an example. Boys lacrosse, with what they did this year, you have to thank the teams from last year and the year before for what they did and showed these guys, how to get it done, how to practice, how to be positive. All these things that might seem so minuscule, but are so imperative when it comes to winning volleyball, winning culture, winning, and just overall success. So this team, similar to when we had Bill Irvin and Dave Whalen on, they did not, they played in the first ever Thanksgiving game versus Holliston, and they did not know that if they looked back 30 years from then, how kind of consequential that was, and how historical that was. Yeah. And I think similar to that, these seniors are going to look back many, many years from now and say, we were part of the first ever boys volleyball team, and there might be 4 or 5 state championships, in between then, where they can say we were the first one. Mm-hmm. We were the first team that set the basically the first team to ever have boys volleyball at Westwood, and look what has come since then. So shout out boys volleyball, tremendous inaugural season, and shout out to the seniors, and their contributions, example set. Evan, track and field. So that was something last year. I think you had covered a couple meets.
We covered one last year. We did the track meet last year versus Ashland at Flayhive, and it was the first track meet we had ever covered. And I know that there was some demand from parents to go and cover those games, so we made it a point. We circled a couple dates, and we doubled that. We did 2 this year, but we were able to get to a couple, and cover the Westwood High track and field team, and what a great season both boys and girls had, and what a great time covering it. We got to work with Henrique and Alex, and Alex both on the team to cover these meets and learn a little bit about what was going on. When I covered the first one last year versus Ashland, I've heard of the 100-meter dash, and I knew what it was, but they know the ins and outs. They're telling us all the stuff we need to know, like, runners are only going to do 1 or 2 events. Throwers are going to do 1 or 2 events. They're giving us the inside scoop, and shout out to them because they're also live texting their teammates at the scorers table, giving us, feeding us the scores, and Westwood got that one, or maybe Holliston got the other one, or whatever. But a great time covering it and a great season for both teams.
Totally, and shout out, like you said, shout out Alex Dorsky, shout out Henrik Legers. But I will say this: we were not as familiar. I did not know what I was getting myself into. But don't let that keep you from trying something new. So we had fun with it. Yeah. We said we don't know what the events are. We'll learn it. We're probably going to sound very kindergarten, throughout the process, and we did. Yeah. But we asked a lot of questions, and we asked for some help, and we had the help, and they were fantastic. And Alex was still participating in the race. In between his events, he'd come up in the booth, and we're having fun. Yeah. But now I have a better understanding. Okay, they're going to start with the hurdles, and then there's different heats, and people are going to have personal records, school records. Some school records were broken this year. But it's such a great sport to follow, to cover. We do the best we can. I volunteer, and you guys busy as ever, especially spring season with the town, elections and the meeting and all that stuff. Yeah. So all of this is just trying to cover as much as we can. So, the more kids we can get involved, in the future, the more coverage we'll be able to do for everything. But to be able to do the meets we did this year was fantastic, and to get a flavor of the talent. So from that, numerous TVL All-Stars. I think girls were second in the TVL, boys were third. But when it came to the actual state meets and the state championships, my goodness. So boys, 4x400. Charlie Jessup, Tino Giannopoulos, Jaden Pillard, Roman Grilly. The 4x4 state champs for D3. Yep. Incredible. 2 of them football players. It's going to make Brad Pindell very happy. Jaden Pillard, what a talented runner. He is going to be, I think, a state champion in the 400. I think next year. Just the talent he brings, one of the best runners in the state. Roman Grilly, kid was playing lacrosse last year. This year, he's a state champ. Yeah, trying something new, and he's one of the top hurdlers in the TVL. And then if that wasn't impressive enough, the girls had a couple state champs of their own. They had the 4x800 team. State champs, Taya Pignotti, Ryan Colleran, Maeve Gavin, Haley Cashman, and then Maeve Gavin was the individual state champ for the 800 in girls Division 3. So shout out Ed Lyons, Jen Teen. What a season, what a banner year for them. In the boys and girls track, also cross country. We talked about that. Indoor track had a state championship as well. That's what happens is things kind of fall in the cracks when you had so many state champions. It's hard to keep track of it. They also were the state champion so you have the Division III state championship. Then there's a state championship for all divisions. And the girls 4x800 won that as well. Yeah.
An impressive season for Westwood cross country and track and field. I mean, if you're Ed Lyons and Jen Teen, you couldn't have asked for a better year. What a great season for all of those athletes, and throughout the season, as we've mentioned it in our recaps, we've said the same names over and over again, and these are, I believe, for the most part, all students who are returning next year.
Yes,
these are all either juniors, currently juniors, or underclassmen who will be back next year. So definitely a team to keep our eyes on. This is a young team. This is a great team. And this is, we talk about culture a lot. This is a culture building. This is now, Westwood, I believe, in terms of track and field and cross country, prior to this year, they had not won any state championships or any titles of that nature since the 80s. Early 80s, maybe late 70s.
And Heffron was talking about it, yeah.
So, you have, for the first time in nearly 50 years, have set the culture and set the standard of this is what we expect as a team. And I would expect that they're going to be very competitive next season. Great results for those kids. And it's great to see that they're, we saw a team championship in the fall, and we're seeing the individuals highlighted too, the individual champions, which is really impressive. Seeing those kids who are working, and like you mentioned, Brad Pindell must be happy seeing Charlie Jessup, but all these kids are playing for the most part, are playing other sports too, and it's great to get that experience and keep that conditioning and for your other sports and just an overall great season for Westwood Cross Country Track and Field throughout the entire year, but also in the spring season as well.
Absolutely. Nearly 50 years. That's assault, brother. Born in 86, and I'm not 40 yet, so I think it was 83. I think that was the
83.
year they had it, but
yeah,
you're right, though. It's been a long time.
The last one I saw was the first one might have been in the 70s, like I think 77, 78, which would have been around Ann Heffern's
that's more like
time.
I thought you were calling me.
No,
50 years old.
No.
But yeah, what a season! And like you said, the culture. This is a family. You could be a freshman on the on the track and field team, and you're not looked at like they all have respect for each other. They're all a family. Like everyone. So when the boys won, I'm going to tell the story. So when the boys won the state championship, I immediately get a message from Henrik Ligers, who was thrilled, and Alex Dorsky as well. Like they will notify me when something big happens, and then they give me they tip me off.
Yeah.
Because they're rooting for they want their teammates to get
hyped up,
to get shouted out, and to get hyped up, and they deserve it.
Yeah.
And that's the culture, is they're rooting for each other. I remember at one point Tony Mari was running around doing his last lap in it might have been the 800, and Colin Greeley's there running side by side, and Colin's not even participating. He's just running to fire him up on his last lap. But the culture is incredible, and it's a winning culture, and it was proven this year in tenfold. Yeah. And it's like you said, it's going to be scary. They got basically a lot of people returning that did a lot of damage this year, in the TVL and in the state. And it's going to be an exciting season next year.
Absolutely.
Boys baseball, Evan. TVL champs, first time since 2015. That's their 6th TVL championship in team history. They were the number 9 seed. And what a job head coach Brian Whalen did this year. So each year they just graduate just a ton of talent. Starters, a majority of their starters, the last 3 seasons, that in particular. And they just have new guys that come in, get it done, and they still find their way to the round of 8. Yeah. It's an incredible team. They beat Plymouth North in the regular season, their last game of the season, and Plymouth North was a semifinalist. They ended up losing to Walpole, who became the state champion, and shout out to them. And we're going to make a quick mention of how that unfolded in a little bit. But what a season. Luke Chandler, did exactly what we thought Luke Chandler was going to do. Yep. He balled out. Yep. What a season he had pitching. And some memorable games. I mean, the playoff games. That Bristol Plymouth playoff game, round of 16, 2 home runs. Yeah. In the beach volleyball court.
I think it's funny too, because when I was editing that game, I think Alex at one point. Oh, whoops! Alex at one point asked, I think he might have asked about home runs on that field too. Yeah. And the last time someone asked about home runs, Luke Chandler hit a home run. Yeah. And then in that game, we doubled it. Yep. Went for 2 home runs, one from Max Bowl, and the other from John Bertone. But what an impressive season, The first game we covered this year was King Philip at Zavarian Brothers on their week off. And at that point, after that loss, they were 4-4. They were at 500 on the year. And you don't, when you're at 500 and you start off kind of, not as strong as you'd like, you look at it and you're like, oh, what do we do? This team turned it around. I mean, based on the record, 16-6, that's 1 regular season loss and 1 playoff loss afterwards. Yeah. So from that point of that start, they basically won out minus a playoff game and 1 regular season game. So an impressive turnaround for that team after a not so strong start. We saw some great games. I'll mention the Medfield game, which you weren't at actually. I think that day
I was hovering around a few different games but comeback win.
Yeah, comeback win. So I believe that was Chandler on the mound for that game. Got them through. It was kind of back and forth between Westwood, Medfield, and Medfield goes up 6-3, and then Charlie Martin comes in the 5th inning.
Yeah.
Or no, excuse me, the 6th inning. It's Westwood 6-3, gets them out of the inning unscathed.
Yeah.
Westwood scores 2 runs it would have been the 5th inning.
Mm-hmm.
Westwood scores 2 runs in the 5th, bring them 6-5. Charlie Martin has a clean top of the 6th. 2 more runs in the bottom of the 6th, and Westwood gets the win, comeback win, and that was big for Westwood there to show this is a team that can battle. And you mentioned it too. They played a Plymouth North team that we didn't cover, but a Plymouth North team that was one of the best teams in the state.
Won state championship last year.
Right.
They were the 1 seed.
They were the 1 seed, and they beat them, and they faced them in the round of 8, and it didn't go their way that time. It's hard to beat any opponent twice, but what a way for that team to battle back, and we got to cover them. It was a great game. We covered that Bristol Plymouth game. What a fun game that was. The home runs.
19-6.
Drew Donahue, 5 for 5, 5 RBIs. Yep. So, what a game he had as well. You're batting 1,000 in any baseball game. That's an impressive day for you. So shout out to Drew Donahue. And then, we mentioned Max Bowl, 4 for 6 on the day with the 2 runs, 6 RBI and a home run.
Yeah.
And John Bertone, 4 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs.
Shout out to Max Burrell. So at the beginning of the season, he was not in the starting lineup. And in fact, he wasn't even in the starting lineup, I think, till towards the end. And when he got his bat going, it was incredible. He was just liftoff, and he was mashing. He was going 3 for 4, 4 for 4. Very productive. And, a guy like Danny Leahy, he wasn't playing last year, and TVL All-Star this year. What a season he had.
What a catch he had in one of those games.
Gosh, yeah.
I can't remember which game, but he had one game where he dove for it and got it.
Yeah.
And
that was the Holliston game.
Yep.
So that was the
night.
TVL clinching. So let's run it back real quick. They won 10 of 11 games to have the opportunity to clinch a share of the TVL with Holliston.
Yeah.
And the stage was set for senior night, and we were there. And what a game that was. Great catch by Danny Leahy, but Wolverines getting it done on senior night to win the TVL. First time in 10 years. These TVL wins are hard to come by. TVL titles are hard to come by. To do what they did, similar to the boys basketball, to rifle off a lot of wins in a row, and then to have that opportunity, and then to take full advantage of that opportunity, win at home. What a memorable senior night.
And that senior night was a great night. What a way to win and clinch your first TVL since 2015. Yeah. I want to talk about the future a little bit for a second. So right now, the Red Sox have Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, and Roman Anthony, and I'm hyping up the Red Sox a day after they trade Devers.
Yeah,
so
hard to do.
But Westwood has their own big young three in Ryan Petrus.
Yeah.
Teddy McGowan and Chase Warren.
Yep.
Those are 3 freshmen who we're going to have to follow for the next 3 years because what impacts these young freshmen had on that team right off the bat. I mean, we had Petrus come in for a game. I can't remember who we played. Norton, yes. Yeah. Pitched a stellar game, and what I believe was his first career pitch, and I think he held him to a shutout. Or they might have gotten a run late.
Well, he battled. I mean, there was times where the bases loaded, and he would find strikeouts. He'd find ways to get out of that inning. But even sophomores, too. Cendric was a sophomore. Yeah. Hunt.
Yep.
He had a terrific season.
He did.
What a season Hunt had. But what a bright future for them.
Yeah.
And when you have – and then you got John Bertone coming back next year, who's junior captain this year, and also the TVL Defensive Player of the Year. Shout out, John. That's an incredible accomplishment. But – all of that mixed together, they're going to be a formidable foe next year, but also for many years to come. Just the Brian Whalen culture of next man up, next person up. Plugging different people into the lineup has been proven is a proven winner. Yeah. Over the many years, and got to give a shout out to Brian Whalen and family. Walpole, the D2 boys state champion for baseball. I think it's their first state championship in baseball in nearly 90 years. And done in exciting fashion, Brian's son Paul had the game-winning hit, 2 RBI single to send Walpole and to walk forever as state champions and do it at Worcester, where the Worcester Red Sox play. But what an incredible memory for him and the family, and congrats to Walpole. We've had some great battles with them, but a lot of respect to them and their program, great coaching staff and whatnot. But what a memory for Brian, Paul, and family. He's never gonna pay for another Diet Coke in Walpole for the rest of his life after a memory like that.
Yeah.
Girls softball, Evan, 15-4 on the year, and the 8th seed had 2 home games, 2 playoff home game wins, and many milestones in the mix of that. And let's start with this: Bridget Mulkeen, the greatest softball player ever at Westwood, and hopefully someday they recognize that, whether it's a naming a field after her or jersey retirement. If there's anyone that's deserved that, I think it's her. Tom Lyde mentioned retiring that jersey, and I'd have to agree. But, it's what an impact she's had on that program. Forever changed because of her.
Yeah, I mean, for the future Westwood High School Hall of Famer, Bridget Mulkeen, over 800 career strikeouts and over 100 career hits, both of which came in the Malden Catholic round of 16 game. I mean, what more can you say? 800 career strikeouts in over the course of 4 years. That comes out to about, I think it's 807, right? So that comes out to about 201, 202 strikeouts a season, which is over the course of about 20 games a season. Yeah. So that's about, I mean, my math's probably off, but you're looking at above 15 strikeouts a game. I'm thinking, so, what a career for Mulkeen. 100 hits. Even in her last season, she batted 540. Yeah. Ted Williams didn't bat 540, I don't think. So
for power too.
Right, 4 home runs, 27 RBI, 33 hits. I mean, what a season, what a career, but what a season, especially in her senior year. And she's doing it pitching and batting. Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth. Exactly.
Shohei Ohtani does it.
Yeah.
Babe Ruth, Shohei Ohtani, Bridget Mulkeen. That you got to put those 3 together. Yeah. What a career. Definitely a player who will be, I think, we will see in the Westwood High School Sports Hall of Fame at one point.
No brainer. Yeah.
But what a great season to cover. We covered softball last year, and we did the senior game. They won their first TVL championship in 41 years last year. This year, just got beat out by Hopkinton, but it was a race to the very end. This was a really good team. We got to cover some of these games. Always a great team. They're always pumped for each other. You can hear them yelling. We were doing the Bristol-Plymouth game, and yes. I remember calling for baseball, and Tom was over there getting highlights for the softball game for us. And we would hear at points in the game cheering all the way from the baseball field to the softball field, and we would say, oh, looks like Westwood must have scored another run or something must have happened. And a few minutes later, Tom would text us, Bridget Mulkeen's 800 career strikeout or 100th career hit. So what a great team to cover. They're always energetic. It's a fast-paced sport, and it's just fun to cover.
Yeah, they have a lot of fun and memorable moments too. I mean, that Bridget Mulkeen home run she hit at Hopkinton in the round of 8, I don't think it's landed yet. I think it's somewhat. I think it's orbiting in space right now. But what a home run that was. I was thinking of putting a clip together and getting the music from The Natural, where he hits the lights and everything explodes and doing that. That would be a fun clip to do. We might just do that. So, but what a season and as you mentioned, career for Bridget Mulkeen. My goodness, 540 average. This season, 33 hits, 27 RBIs, and those 4 home runs. Sasha Marino, one of the best players to ever come through the program. Mm-hmm. She had, year over year, just high average, 455 this year, had over 30 hits this season. And she had done that regularly. Amelia O'Neill, terrific season as well, 367 average, one of the best fielders you'll see. When she could play all over. She was playing outfield, she played second base, she played emergency catcher for one of the games. And then we got to give shout out to Abby Johnson, great season, 318 average. Izzy Walsh big sophomore year, 435 average, 24 hits, 22 runs. And you had mentioned the boys, how they had a bright future with the freshmen. So do the girls. Eve Clinton, Brooke Benger, Mia French, and Catherine Granada. All their contributions this year as freshmen. And then you throw Mia Poles into the mix, who had probably her best season as well. Like, what a terrific season she had. Yeah. And senior night, what a memorable night she had at senior night, not only at the plate, but great catch in the field, tracking that ball down in the outfield. But a lot to be proud of, girls. What you did this season, the round of 8, and what you've, basically similar to, like we've said with boys volleyball, the example you've set for many generations to come, because this is generation 1, right, where you have Malkeen now graduating, Marino, and you have the youth program that has followed them, and followed their winning, before they got to high school, and really bolstered up. The girls softball, Westwood Youth softball has never been stronger. And there's so many girls that are enrolled in it, and so many that are playing the summer league and then the spring league, and then also doing the club. And that was never a part of really the sports in Westwood. Now it's a big part, and arguably one of the most successful programs right now at the high school with what they've done over the years. So a lot of people involved in that, Tom Lydon included. But it's going to be some exciting years to come, and what an example. Bridget Malkeen set, Sasha Marino set, Amelia O'Neill set, the 3 seniors that will be graduated, that are moving on to college next year. But incredible impact they've had on the program, and some incredible memories too that we were very happy and lucky to be a part of. Covering those games. So that leaves us with 2, Evan, and these are 2 teams that made the Final Four. And they're the same sport as well. So boys and girls lacrosse. We'll start with the boys. 16-5 on the year. TVL champs for Todd Zahurik and team. The first time since 2018, and that was their first ever. So this is, I believe, their second. I have to double check, but their second TVL championship ever. And let me just set the table a little bit here. So for my era at Westwood High School, they had lacrosse, and they were like the free win for anyone in the TVL. You want, make sure you don't, you don't go winless in your season. Play Westwood, and a lot of these teams would play Westwood, and they would get their free win from Westwood. Westwood, if they had 1 or 2 wins in the season, that was as expected. And I think there was a revolving door of coaches. I think it was like 7 coaches in 7 years before Todd came in 2009. So not only were they, only winning a few games, they weren't making the playoffs. And Todd Zahurik comes in 2009, so his 16th year now. And what he's done and the trajectory of the program each year has just taken it a step further. And, last year they were a goal short of going to the round of 8. This year they do it. And who they did it against, too. So round of 32, they beat TVL large rival Hopkinton. They then have to go on the road to play the D2 runner-up from last year, Marshfield. They do it in exciting fashion. Liam Williams, my goodness, with, I think, 8 seconds left, scores it lefty. He saved that lefty shot for when it mattered the most, and it was a rocket. Boys get that win. Then they got to go all the way to Longmeadow, which was like a good hour and 45, hour 50-minute drive. The number 2 seed in Massachusetts, arguably could have been a 1 seed. They played Bill Ricca, who was the 1 seed this year, and it was a 1-goal game they lost at Bentley. But a tremendous game. My goodness, another came down to the end. Troy Fredrickson puts the ball in the net with just about a minute left. And then what Westwood defense did to keep that ball out of the net with the remaining minute was incredible. There was a bunch of shots. They were wide. And then Jaden Pollock with probably, one of the most memorable, top 10 memorable plays ever. With that save, with the clock winding down, and then send it down the length of the field, and Jaden, Jaden, yes,
it's been dubbed the save
by you,
yes, on social media. But what a run for Westwood. I mean, like you mentioned, first TVL championship since 2018. We talked to Todd, and one quote that when we talked to him as the first guest ever on this episode was, do you hate losing or do you love winning? And the answer was yes. And I'm sure he was quite happy with this season. TVL championship win, and then the wins in the playoffs, and just battling back. These are games and these are opponents runner-up and state champion from last year. It's easy to let that intimidate you. You can look at them and say, oh, yeah, good run, guys, and whatever. They didn't let that get to them, and they battled. They knew that they were just as good as any other team in the state. They battled and they fought. What a season for them, and what the last 2 wins they had. What better wins for a team could you have than that? They went on a run to the Final Four, a Final Four appearance this season, which
incredible. They lost by a goal. They were a goal away from going to the championship, and the Reading, who beat them, which is a huge town. I think Reading is probably 3 times the size of Westwood, but Westwood just whoever they tell us who we're playing, we'll be there. They Reading lost in the state championship Saturday to Bill Ricca, I think 17-16.
Yeah.
So it just shows how good Westwood defense was.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best in the state. When you had Reading down to just, I think it was 9 goals.
Yeah.
And then you did that against Long Meadow, and you did that against you kept Long Meadow under 10 goals. You kept Marshfield under 10 goals. These are big time lacrosse programs.
Yeah, I mean I would say the top 5, 6, 7 teams in Massachusetts Division II boys lacrosse are about neck and neck. I mean,
oh yeah,
these are all these games we're mentioning, whether it's state championship or semifinals or even quarterfinals. They're all 1-goal. These aren't games that were teams getting blown out.
No.
These are 1-goal games between each opponent. And when you have games like that, you know that at least for boys lacrosse Division II, that ranking system is about as accurate as it's going to get.
Yeah.
Because, we're looking at it, and these are all teams that are right on level. And Westwood is right on level with some towns that are bigger. I live probably like 10 minutes from Reading.
Yeah.
It's a big town.
Yeah.
Don't let it kid you. And Bill Ricca, too. Bill Ricca's a big town.
Big, yeah.
Marshfield's a big town.
These are D1 teams back, 10 years ago.
Long Meadow's right outside of Springfield.
Yeah.
That's a city.
It
so,
is, yeah.
These are big towns that Westwood's going up against, and they're right there with it. And that just speaks to, the culture and the level of effort that is here in Westwood, and what these kids are doing and what they're building towards and what they're working towards and what Coach Zahurik has built since you mentioned the era of evolving coaches. From 2009 on, he has worked towards this, and we are starting to see where the years and years of effort is going towards.
Yeah. Dabo Sweeney once said, BYOG, bring your own guts. And that just reminds me of what the boys lacrosse did. Is they were gutsy wins. These were the Long Meadow game. They were down 4 in the third quarter, and then they scored 5 unanswered. 5 unanswered. They kept Long Meadow scoreless in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like this is a powerhouse. This is a team that puts 20 goals up. And Westwood, what they did, and a lot of obviously seniors, so much talent to the seniors, and you got Kyle Harvey on the defensive side, but a lot of sophomores, a lot of young kids, on the team doing big things. Greg Walsh had a huge goal in the Long Meadow game to tie it.
Yeah.
That was right before Frederickson scored. Will Stuhler, how many times do we call his name?
Oh my God.
And what he did. And Will Sessamon, C.J. Hancock, incredible seasons and what they were doing out there defensively, getting that ball on the ground and going the other way and scoring big goals. Ryan Williams and Liam Williams, the best pair of twins in Massachusetts lacrosse. There's, for boys. Girls, we got girls as well with the DeMeos. But boys lacrosse, those twins, my goodness, they're going to have a big summer, because whoever picks them up for college, that's going to be a steal.
Yeah. And if I had to put a superlative award for a player who had like a breakout season across all 3 seasons, all sports, it's got to be Will Stuhler.
Yeah.
The jump he had from freshman year when we covered his first goal and he was getting a little playing time here and there to this season was night and day. Will Stuhler, there's an argument to be made that he was one of the top players on that team this year.
Yeah.
He was a leader. You saw it when he played. Tough kid, and he's a sophomore.
Yeah.
As a sophomore. So he is definitely a guy who I think had a breakout season, a huge season for Stuhler, and I think he's definitely someone who, looking ahead next season, we talk a lot about, looking ahead, and I think we do it because we're excited, because look at all this talent that Westwood has. He is someone who I think you have to have his name circled and highlighted and bolded in every way to emphasize it. Will Stuhler is here. He's here to play lacrosse. He's going to have a great junior season next year, and we're excited. I'm sure Coach Z is excited.
Oh,
And I'm sure the team's excited too.
What those kids showed is they can play under pressure. Last year, I remember they were a little bit nervous, and I think they played Mansfield. It was in Mansfield, and you could see there was some kind of unforced turnovers where the nerves are there. This year, they embraced it. They wanted the ball in their stick, and they actually, the difference between the beginning of the season and the end of the season is you have all these players on the team that are goal scorers, that are proven goal scorers, but towards the end of the season, it was not about getting my shots. It was about getting the right shot. So when they bought into, instead of trying to, everyone getting their shots throughout the game, which might not have been the best looks or best opportunities, they were working the ball around and finding the right opportunity where it was the best look possible and the highest percentage to score, and they maximized it.
Yeah.
And what a job they did. And, when you were mentioning Will Stuhler, like I just remember a goal he had in Marshfield, and it was like a car wreck. He got hit by 3 or 4 people, and that's what he's willing to do to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
And I see his mom, Tracy, on the sideline. She's, taking photos and whatnot. And she was very concerned. And then when she saw him get up, she, took a deep breath, but was excited at the same time. And I go over, I go, Tracy. She goes, I don't know how he just got up, and I'm like, I don't know either, but like that's what it's playoff lacrosse is all about, is willing to just put your body on the line for, to get a goal, to stop a goal. And Jaden Pollock played his best lacrosse when it mattered the most this season in the playoffs. And shout out to Max, brother Max, there for the coverage, some fantastic interviews he did. But he said some nice things about little brother throughout the season as we did games, and that was fun. Being able to have alumni come back and have them involved in the game and whatnot. That was a pretty cool memory.
We had Don Varner on for a game
Donnie,
too.
yeah.
For maybe I think it was only like a quarter or whatever, but getting to see some of the old
awesome.
old athletes too, getting back on and work towards it. And Max was great too. Max, Syracuse University student, going for broadcast journalism. So great to help get him the experience and get the in-booth experience. It's all about reps. I mean, you could say it for any sport. You could say it for broadcast, whatever. Yeah. All about just doing it, getting it repetitive, and just improving as you go and learning from it. So great to have him in the booth and cover a great season.
Absolutely. And there were some milestones that we covered. I believe Dante Martucci, 100th point.
Yep.
What a player he's been. What a leader he was all season and, over his career at Westwood High School. Jack Roycroft, 100 career goals. We covered, I was there for that game. It was the Medway game, I believe. And, nope, I think it was Dedham. Because we went to the senior night softball game right after it. But shout out to Jack. That was incredible. And Troy Fredrickson, over 200 career points. It might have been 250, but over, unbelievable accomplishment for him. He's probably one of, if not the most prolific goal scorer in Westwood boys lacrosse history. The amount of goals he's had. His freshman year, I think he had 30 or 40. So, and he just got better and better year over year with that. But what a shot he has, that lefty shot. He's picking corners, and he's doing it at 100 miles an hour. So incredible milestones there. And what a memorable season. Thank you, guys. That was so much fun to cover.
Yeah.
And, the best boys lacrosse team in history, this past season. And, you got to thank also the teams before them, the leaders and seniors that graduated before that showed them the way. So shout out, guys. Incredible season. And then girls lacrosse, 18-3 on the regular season versus in a very difficult, challenging schedule. Shout out to Margot Spatola for putting that schedule together, and the girls too for getting out there and getting big wins over top New England school teams, and a nice playoff run as well. 21-4 on the season, including the playoffs into that mix. They were the 3 seed and had a great win at home versus Duxbury to get back to the semifinals, which was an incredible win. The defensive battle, which a lot of the games we've seen this year, explosive offense, but to see the defense, what they did in that game, Catherine Donnellan, my goodness, and just the whole defense in general, it was a fantastic memory.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to something you mentioned just a second ago. You said top teams in New England, not Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And that's because Coach Spatola put together teams. Bishop Girton, top team in New Hampshire, and Moses Brown, top team in Rhode Island.
Yes.
And I believe they beat, just Bishop Girton.
Bishop Girton. I
They
think the
lost to
Moses Brown was
Moses
a close
Brown.
one. Yeah.
But you're playing top teams in the state and in New England and other states, and you're competitive. And those losses weren't, blowout losses by any means. These were 1-2 point losses.
One possession.
Notre Dame Academy, Hingham.
Yeah.
1 point loss or 2 point loss there. But looking at the playoff run, we covered the first game against Tantascwa, a very solid showing from Westwood there. We weren't at the second round game, which I believe was Billerica.
Yeah.
And then you were there for the third round game versus Duxbury. But these are all teams that are, Duxbury is one of the top teams in the state. It was actually funny enough, the first girls lacrosse game I covered here in Westwood was against Duxbury. And it was a regular season game. And they actually lost 8-7.
They lost, yeah.
And they played Duxbury earlier this year as well, and I believe they won.
They won by a goal, yeah.
A goal. So these are good opponents. They play tough opponents. They play the top opponents in the state. They're not afraid to play anyone, and I think that's a culture thing. And hey, we'll play anyone, anywhere, anytime, as long as the field's ready. Yeah. So, a great season for girls lacrosse. A lot of talent. A lot of senior talent. We've talked about Kate Sullivan in length for what she did with hockey, but a great season from her. Caroline Nozzolillo was consistently ranked by the Globe as one of the top players in the state. The
All-American. Probably will be an All-American again this year. She was an All-American as a junior.
And not to mention over 250 career goals,
Crazy.
which she got against Norwood, which we didn't cover because we were at town meeting.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get it to it. But we covered the game right before that Norwood game, and we were on edge the entire broadcast, hoping she would get it. And what's crazy is she got, I think 6 or 7 goals and didn't get it in that game. But that just shows you how much of a prolific scorer she was for girls lacrosse. She's getting 6 or 7 goals and a game, and she was big. We were calling double hat tricks left and right. What a great season for girls lacrosse. I mean, we saw that last season too. The seniors, all 6 seniors who played, are going to be going to the next level, Division I. For the most part, I think a couple Division II, but high division sports to be playing at the next level. What a year! A great season for girls lacrosse and some great wins. Made to the Final Four. Didn't pan out the way we wanted as a team, but it was still a great season. Last year I believe it was the round of 8 they made it to, and they lost. So we're working to you're trying to get back and build back to where, a few years ago where you were in the state championship. It's been a few years since, and that just comes and goes with high school sports, especially, it's not we're not a private school, so it's not like we're, getting players who are going for maybe that sport. Yeah. So, it's all about, that's why, I think a lot of times we emphasize building culture, and Coach Spatola has done a great job embracing the culture that was before created by Coach Frank and building on it and showing hey, this is what we need to do to get back. And I think even though a lot of the great talent you're seeing leaving this year, Nozzolillo, the DeMeo sisters, Sullivan, and Donalyn, Thurmond, I think you'll still see this team getting even better. Yeah. We said it a bunch. Those seniors are the ones who set the culture and set the example for the younger kids. They're building something great there, and that's also another team we have to keep an eye on. They've had, great seasons, getting their way back up to the level they were, and I think you're going to see a just as equally impressive year next year from them.
So, Evan, I remember the DeMeos, Caroline Nozzolillo as freshmen, and that. When you look at next year, it's going to be who are the next DeMeos, who are the next Nozzolillo that are going to join Westwood as freshmen and add to the mix of the talent that they have coming back. And they got a ton. But this is what that program has done year over year over year for the past 7 years, like 25 years.
Yeah.
So I hear that they have a tremendous 8th grade class, coming in too. Yeah. So it's going to be exciting. And when you talked about playing the best teams in New England, they also they beat 2 state champions this year in the regular season. So they beat Concord Carlisle, who was a Division I state champion, and they beat Medfield, who was a D3 state champion. So that's that's how close these teams are.
Yep.
And it speaks volumes of how talented they were, and to do that against those teams who went out and got it done. That's a big deal, and some great players that are going to be graduated. So the DeMeos, in my opinion, 2 of the most complete players to come through the program when you look at what they've done all over the field. They're offensive talents, but to mix in the defense. And then when you have to look at like the components of the game that are very important that go under the radar is the clears. Moving that ball from your defensive zone after a goalie save, and then bringing it into the offensive zone, protecting it, maintaining that possession, and then setting up the offense. Those are 2 of the best, to do it, and like those are so important, such an important position, that midfield position there. Kate Sullivan, what she's done in hockey will be she's a sure first ballot Hall of Famer for hockey. There's no question about it. But what she's done in lacrosse last year, she was helping out on the offensive side. This year, she helped on the defensive side. And then when they needed big goals, they'd throw her up on offense, and she would score the big goals. And she scored a couple big ones versus Duxbury.
I know, and how unselfish of a player, too.
Yeah.
You played offense last year.
Yeah.
We called her name a lot for a lot of goals. This year goes where she's needed.
Yeah.
You could say, I want to play offense. I know she's going to college for lacrosse as well. So, you might want to get those reps in on offense to practice for when you're in the college level. But no, she's going to go where the team needs her. Helps out, and it proved very beneficial for Westwood. And what a team player. Shout out to Kate.
Yeah,
that's the type of players
example
you want on the team, and it's a great example too.
Yeah, and Thurman too. The past 2 years she's had total superstar, and I'm gonna miss the slam dunks that she had. She would just go up and get it, and then Margot coined her Air CC. So we have Air Liam and Air CC.
Yep.
And she had 100 career goals milestone. Which is incredible, and her and the Nozzolillo connection on when they would set each other up and score. Those 2 were 2 of the very best in all of girls lacrosse. And the defense, when we talk about that Duxbury game, the defense was absolutely terrific, and they were solid all year. And when you look at Catherine Donnellan, we talked to head coach Margot Spatola at the beginning of the year. Catherine Donnellan played defense. She wasn't a goalie. So she started playing goalie, I think, her sophomore year when there was an injury. And Haley Berner, who is an assistant coach goalie at Westwood, started, kind of just teaching her the ins and outs of goalie 101. And, was a big part of the development of Catherine and what she did this year. And Catherine making saves, the saves she had on shooting spaces, which are probably the most difficult saves to make when there's a free possession that go into the net. And, it's the highest percentage scoring that you see in games. She was making big time saves in the Duxbury game, as well as, I remember the NDA game, Cohasset. But also when you get Kate Sullivan out there in defense, it's a terrific job being able to knock that ball loose, being able to change angles, 4 shots from the outside that are very manageable saves. Olivia Mason, Olivia Shea, the Olivias. Every sport, Olivia Mason doesn't play basketball anymore, but they play soccer together. They used to play all 3 sports together. But they're terrific athletes, competitors. A huge turnover caused by Olivia Shea in the game when they were down a player to then allow them to get to equal strength and then minimize any damage that Duxbury had with being up 2 players. Jillian Walsh was great. Meredith was great on defense, and the middies that would come back and help out as well. So that is, I think, a cornerstone that they'll have going into next year and years to come is the terrific defense they have. So they're going to be able to keep the ball out of the net. Now, who are going to be those players that are going to, score, pick up the production, and they got some good options coming back.
I was going to say one of their best options they're going to have is Bridget Hughes.
Yeah.
I mean, Bridget Hughes equally had a big step-up season in her sophomore year, similar to Will Stuhler. There are 2 sophomores in boys and girls lacrosse to keep your eye on. Will Stuhler, Bridget Hughes. She had a great season. She stepped up big, and she got meaningful playing time, late, too, and big goals late in the season, in the postseason. She's playing in the Final Four. So, I think she's definitely one of those players for Westwood who next year is definitely going to step up and lead that scoring attack on offense. You mentioned it. Defense is going to be pretty secure and pretty locked down for Westwood, but if I had to pick someone for offense, it's her.
I forgot to mention Jenny Mackin. She is part of the defense too, and what a face-off specialist she is too. What an incredible talent. She also chips in on goals too. So I mean, what an incredible talent she is, and she is going to be a big-time player coming back next year. And she's been fun to cover. A great player for the Wolverines. Cassidy McMillan had a terrific season. Fitzpatrick as well. Emma Fitzpatrick. Both of them are sophomores. So one thing when I interviewed Bridget Hughes after one of the big games, I said, how much did last year being an underclassman, being a freshman in the playoffs, make you prepared for big games like this throughout? And she said, it was a big influence because now there's a little bit more patience. She's holding on to the ball to create a better angle, to score goals, where there's less of the anxiousness of getting rid of it, and not it's just for any underclassman. You're anxious to shoot when you have the ball on your stick, but as time develops in big games, you know how to handle those nerves, and you have your decision making is different, and you have that patience to know that I'm going to hold it for a couple extra seconds or take a couple extra steps where I'll have more of the net to shoot at and things like that. And that was so beneficial for her, which I know will be beneficial for Emma and Cassidy, next year, and that team. But it was a memorable year. Some fantastic seniors that will be remembered for a long time. That were part of a historic program that we keep looking at year over year, amazed at the success that they've done and the history that they've had over the last 25 years. 10 state championships in basically 25 years. What other program can match that? It's tough to find any. Yeah. And they're doing it. They did it at the Division I level. All those state championships have been at the Division I level when we're humble Westwood, 16,000 person town. But yeah, incredible year. And Evan, kind of wrap up, your final thoughts on the 2025 spring season.
What a season to end on. I mean, we've covered this year, I think it was like 123 games, something like that, between us and everyone who's helped the workout. And the spring season, I think was just, we covered 8 sports. It flew by, but it flies when you have these teams that we cover that are, all very great. These are all good teams. These are all well put together teams, well coached teams. They're good kids. They work hard, and they make it easy to film the games. They make it. You go to these games and gonna get a win. They're playing as hard as they can. They're going for the win. They're competitive, and what a great season we had, and what a great year we had. This is the spring season recap, but this is beginning the wrapping up process of the 2024-25 sports season for us. We'll do a top 10 episode at some point here, and
sure,
we'll put out some nominees and for the entire year, because we forgot to do we didn't do it by season this year, simply because I think we just got busy, but it was a great season, and we got to cover a lot of sports, got to learn a little bit about some sports, got to get to know these teams a bit better. The first season we did together was last spring, so I knew these teams a little better, I think, than the fall and winter seasons when we started them. But second season, you know them a bit better. They know you a bit better, and it was a great time. And we got students involved. We got a bunch of people involved. Charlotte helped out with boys volleyball. Couldn't have done it without Charlotte. And Maeve did all year. What I always have one or two students who go through the entire year. Maeve was one of them. The other one's Elliot. Shout out Elliot.
Shout out.
Who was graduated.
Yep.
Congrats on graduating. I will miss you helping out with those games. You helped out a lot. Dorsky,
Alex
helping out with commentary.
Legend.
First student to do commentary. And speaking of commentary with students, we had, I don't know if we mentioned it, but Brooke Benger's little brother, Reed, as a 6th grader, did his first game.
He's got a bright future.
Yes, he does. That's great. We want kids learning and getting involved, and that's a big part of it. So, a great season, a great year. For
great
sports.
partnerships too, like
Yep.
with just Arch Cadillac,
Yep.
what they've done to the program and just the sports and the content and the coverage and all that. It's
Yeah.
made it fun, exciting, and we really do mean it. Like, so proud of these kids and what they did this year, and what they did, showing just the town on the big stage.
Yeah.
And going into these behemoth towns and coming out with wins, historical wins, and to do it where you look up like the articles and like, wow,
Yeah.
Long Meadow lost.
Yeah.
Long Meadow lost at home
Yeah.
to, a proud Westwood team.
Yeah.
And they believed. I know that Todd Zahurik had senior parents come to speak to the team throughout the playoffs, and I think that certainly fired up. And one of the common themes is believe.
Yeah.
Believe. And all the teams that we covered this year certainly believed. They believed in each other, and they did some great things out there. And it was a fun season to cover. And, it's certainly going to look back and have a lot of memories to cherish from, a terrific 2024, 2025 season.
Yeah. I mean, can't really say it better than that. We had a great year, a lot of great memories. I recently I tried to write down everyone. I think we had close to like 20 different students, people, volunteers, help out at one point.
Yeah.
Whether it be students, whether it be Charlotte helping me out as I need, whether it be you or Tom Lydon or Tom Nappy over at HCAM, Brian Gagliard over at Norwood Community.
Shout out Brian, he's the class president elect.
Yep, saw that. Congrats to Brian. But it's not just. I think often we're the people on the mics, you and I, and I think it comes to us, but it's nowhere near just you and I. I don't think I could do it without anyone else. So to all the people who helped this year, Arch, Cadillac, Charlotte, Tom Lydon, and Nappy, Alex, all of you. I'll probably put a graphic up here so you see it. Marie, thank you. Yeah. We can't simply, it takes a village. It really does. And, from me to you guys, thank you. So
Absolutely. Thank you all. And that will put a bow, officially close the chapter on the 2025 sports season. And what a fun season that was. And folks, thank you for tuning in. Episode 41 of the Wolverine Report. Looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.